Down here in the dark recesses of my basement. Walked past it twice and didn't realize I had it covered up with that piece of cardboard. Years ago, I went to an auction at a window and door factory out in western Massachusetts that went out of business. I bought a big honkin' DeWalt radial arm saw. Nice, beautiful one. Really well made, solid machine. Bought it. $150. Got it home, only to realize it was 3-phase. So I built a rotary phase converter so I could run it, and I used that when I was building my house, and it was a great saw. When I finished building the house, believe it or not, I couldn't get $100 for it, so I ended up actually scrapping it, which, you know, it's alright. I got my money's worth out of it. One of the things that it came with, because it was 3-phase, was this big roll of cable, which, I don't know, I'm estimating that's about 20 pounds, and that's copper wire there. So I'm going to find out what the gauge is in a second. 12.4, so it's number 12. So that should be only for 20 amp, for a 20 amp branch circuit. But he was running this thing off a 15 amp wire, so I think I'll be okay running this off of 20. I don't plan on sitting there all day long, you know, production welding or whatever. You know, here it says the input 230 volts, 50 amp. So for me to run this on a 50 amp circuit correctly, I mean, my stove circuit is probably a 30. I don't even think that's 50. Although I don't recall. Anywho, problem is, I'd have to have some big honking heavy copper wire to make an extension cord to handle 50 amp. And, well, quite frankly, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on that much copper wire for this kind of a deal. So, call me crazy.
Oh, you sure are a crazy son of a...
But again, I'm not going to be running this thing all day long. So this is what I'm using.
You're out of your mind.
Are you mad? Are you mental?
Alright, so you loosen this screw and this cover comes right off, and this shows us what we got going here. And we got real simple. The very green one's your ground, and then your L1 and L2, and those are interchangeable, so there's no mystery there. So in the factory where they were running that saw in 3-phase, they were using this wire, the green for the ground, and then they were using basically your 3 phases, your L1, your L2, and your L3, these 3 wires. Also, if you were using this for a 220 volt setup, you could use the green for the ground, you could use your red and blacks for your L1 and L2, and you could use this for a neutral. So you could do a 120/240 type of thing. If I had one more conductor here, I could tie these 2 conductors together and then tie the other 2 together, and I could have even better current carrying capacity of this cable, but I'm 1 wire short. And you might be thinking, well, why not just tie these green and red together and use that for L1 and these for L2 and omit the ground? Well, I'm just not comfortable with doing that, so I'm not going to. I want to keep that ground healthy. I want a good ground from here to the house. So I'm going to stick this in so that a little bit of the insulation, the outer sheathing, is protruding in past the clamp here, and then that's going to give me a rough idea how long I want these wires to be, so I know where to cut those roughly. And for my purposes, the neutral wire here will be unused, so I'm just going to cut that off real short right here. Well, it starts to become real obvious that these conductors are too small for this socket. When you go to tighten it down, and you can see it's crushing down the stranded wire and bottoming out, so I don't really like that connection, but it is what it is. Alright, so we got that end all set. So now, the other end, I picked up this Leviton 30/50 amp dual power plug. They call it a 30/50 because it's kind of like a convertible deal, and What I mean by convertible is you can see it's actually got slots going in both directions. So depending on what application you need, you can either orient them that way for 50 amp, or you can orient them like in this picture right here, where they're both, the blades are horizontal, and I guess that's your 30 amp. So before I go any further, I think I'm going to go double check and see what's underneath my stove for a circuit. Alright, down in the basement here underneath the stove, and I can see that's where the cable goes up into the house. That one there is the 50 amp that goes out to my hot tub circuit. Alright, so I traced it back here. So this is the one on the right here is the hot tub. One on the left here is the one going out to the stove. That's definitely a 30. That's probably for the dryer. And that's the other 30, which goes out to my box for my central air, which I never ended up installing, but I wired for central air when I was doing the electrical work here. So I never finished wiring marking all of these, but I know that it's coming out on this side. Chances are it's on this bank here. So that's a 20, certainly not it. That's a 20, that's not it. That's a 30 that's off. So that must be, what the heck is that one? Oh, that must be the central layer. Don't remember. I don't know. All right, so this 50, no, that's a 50 right there. That might be the stove. Yep, it's off. So underneath the stove by all the dust bunnies, there's the plug I'm looking for. So it looks like I did wire this for a 50 amp circuit. Oh, crud, it's a 4-wire. It's a 4-wire. Oh man, does that mean I can't plug into that? Alright, so this isn't going to work because I just checked and we got a couple of things going on here. This, I thought maybe since this spade doesn't exist on here, that maybe I could just put this together and it would plug into that outlet in there, but it's not going to, because when I compare it to this one, I get a couple of things. This spade, this has two different sized, actually, what it's got is it's got a wide spade and a narrow spade. But the wide spade will only be vertical on this side. It could be horizontal or vertical on this side. On this side, they cut the slots, so you can only put this wide spade on this side as horizontal, not in the vertical configuration. So I'd have to modify that slot. But I was going to do that until I held it up against this and realized that the spacing between these two blades is narrower than the spacing between these two blades. So even if I do that, I'm going to not be able to plug this into that that receptacle underneath the stove. And once I modify this, I will have nullified my ability to be able to return it. And this thing ran me $17 at the store, so I think I'm going to just return that and get myself a, hopefully they make one of these that I can put on a cord like that, because, geez, now that I think of it, when I was at Home Depot, I don't think I saw any of these of this style. Saw full cords, but not just the plug ends. Well, I've got an electrical supply house here in town that's actually better in many ways when it comes to electrical components than any big box stores, so I think I'll go hit them up.